Now there's a new Massachusetts charter. How did that happen? Welcome to Salem Witch Trials Daily. I'm Josh Hutchinson.
I'm Sarah Jack. Let's find out how the new charter in courts worked out for Salem.
So yesterday we talked about the old charter and how that was revoked in 1684. A few years after that was revoked, Increase Mather, a leading minister in Massachusetts, went to England to negotiate with the king for a new charter, which was finally issued October 7th, 1691. Word of the new charter first arrived in Massachusetts in late January 1692, and on February 8th, the details made it over to the Massachusetts Bay Colony. The details that were arriving made it clear to the magistrates that courts should not proceed with trials until the new government was installed and new courts were created. However, as we noted, capital prosecutions had proceeded under the ad hoc government in between charters.
This is February of 1692 and after, so we know accusations and arrests are happening, those details to come. But on May 14th in 1692, the charter finally arrives with the new appointed governor, Sir William Phips.
Under this new charter, toleration that had been introduced in the Dominion of New England continued. The Puritans had to be tolerant of other Protestant faiths. Also, any adult male property owner could be a freeman and vote. Before, you had to be a member of the Puritan Church. This new charter voided all of Massachusetts' existing laws because they had been made with what was now an invalid charter. So this cleared out the laws, wiped the slate clean, and new laws had to be passed by Massachusetts that were not repugnant to English law. The courts also had to be reestablished after elections were held for legislators so they could get seated and create these courts. The legislature does not get around to making these new courts, though, until November 1692. So there's all these months going by. We know that the jails are full of people accused of witchcraft as well as other crimes. So something has to give here.
All of this political and legal uncertainty was contributing to a sense of unease in the colony, and it delayed trials for months. So, how did they start these witch trials?
On May 27th, Governor Sir William Phips created a special court called the Court of Oyer and Terminer, which means to hear and determine. This was an emergency court that he established on the spot to hear the rest of the witchcraft cases because dozens and dozens of people were in the jails on witchcraft charges, but also to hear other cases that had backed up during the time before the charter was reissued. And so this court had 9 judges. They were all appointed by William Phips. There were also juries that went along with the judges. These juries were selected from the freemen of the counties that were involved in the trials by the sheriffs or marshals of the counties.
So, sadly, on June 2nd, Bridget Bishop gets her day in court. Presumed guilty. More details as the dailies continue. Her historical identity is frequently confused with Sarah Bishop, another accused woman who lived on the Danvers-Beverly line and ran a rowdy, unlicensed tavern. That wasn't Bridget, that was Sarah. While Bridget lived in Salem town and did not run a tavern, she was known for her feisty personality and for wearing a distinctive red bodice or petticoat, which was used to identify her specter in court.
So you have this trial. This is the first trial of the Salem Witch Trials, June 2nd. The new legislature doesn't even meet until June 8th. So this is why this Court of Oyer and Terminer exists, because the legislature, they had just had elections in May, and so they hadn't got around to passing laws yet. Nevertheless, Bridget Bishop, she is hanged on June 10th, the first execution of the witch trials.
On June 15th, Governor Phipps signs an act preserving old charter laws, except those in disagreement with English law.
Now, this court of Oyer and Terminer met a few times between June, it met every month through September, and went on with trials. It ended up hearing 27 cases of witchcraft and produced 27 convictions, 100% conviction rate. The last session of the Court of Oyer and Terminer, September 1692, and then Governor Phipps disbanded it the next month. And then on November 25th, this is when the legislators created the new court system. Under the old charter, the Court of Assistants had been the highest court in the land. They now created a superior court of judicature. So the assistants from the upper house of the legislature were not automatically on this court anymore. And so judges for this superior court included William Stoughton, who had been the Chief Justice of the Court of Oyer and Terminer. He was Chief Justice again. And then Samuel Sewell, we know about Sewell being on the Court of Oyer and Terminer, and Waitstill Winthrop was there. He was the son of John Winthrop Jr., who was the governor over in the British colony of Connecticut. And also John Richards from the Court of Oyer and Terminer gets reappointed. So there's a lot of continuity from the Court of Oyer and Terminer, even though they use some different standards in hearing the cases now.
Then January through May of 1693, this new court, Superior Court of Judicature, saw 50 witchcraft trials. 3 convictions happened, but they were all reprieved. Those were 3 women, Elizabeth Johnson Jr., Sarah Wardwell, the widow of Sam Wardwell, who was hanged, and Mary Post.
And those convictions, those 3 women had confessed to witchcraft, which puts the lie to that myth that confessing would have saved your life. Because these 3, along with several who had been convicted in September 1692, they all get put on a death warrant in January 1693 by Chief Justice William Stoughton. So 8 people are supposed to be executed February 1st, but Governor Phipps comes in January 31st, the day before, and issues a reprieve and says, no, we're not going to execute anybody else because of his witchcraft business.
That's enough about Stoughton. Tomorrow, we're going to fill you in on the Mathers.